It appears that Craig Conroy has done it again. We are recapping the first two picks that the Flames made in the first round of the 2025 NHL Draft.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jessica Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. We are going to be doing a quick rundown of first-round reactions. Who is Cole Reschny? Who is Cullen Potter? And overall, what's the consensus? Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And with the 18th overall pick, the Calgary Flames selected Cole Reschny, who is a center in the WHL. He had 92 points, 26 goals in 62 games. This was a player that a lot of people had going before the 18th pick, but then at the same time, people also had him falling in that 16 to 19 region. And it was a blessing, it feels like, that he fell or was still available when the Flames picked. He is one, it's funny, both of the Flames draft picks this first round were the only two firm first rounders from the NCAA, which I think is super neat. I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the coming years, which is very exciting. But he is a well-rounded player. Obviously, you love that he's a center. This is something that the Flames have needed to build off of for years. They have needed to find that. They've needed to really beef up their center depth, and this is a good continuation of that. A lot of scouting reports have him listed as a player that brings an immense amount of speed to the ice, and he's able to produce in any situation. I think that with the Flames, you need guys like that. You need playmakers. And that is exactly what Cole Reschny is. And I am thrilled to see that. On the ESPN broadcast, they said one of his comparisons was Jonathan Huberdeau. And obviously, they are not referring to Calgary Jonathan Huberdeau. But I think that, that's pretty neat. Maddie Beniers, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. So, there's some good stuff there. And he is playing at the University of North Dakota, which I was interested to see what alumni went there. Obviously it's a great hockey program, but who are some of their alumni? Shane Pinto, Brock Besser, Brock Nelson, Troy Stetcher. But I feel like those first three are Derek Forbert went there. Obviously, Pinto, Besser, and Nelson are a little more esteemed. What's also funny is that Pinto was the 32nd overall pick. Rasmus Anderson to Ottawa for Shane Pinto. Complete the trifecta. But anyways, he is a strong playmaker, and it's good. Like I mentioned, the Flames need that. The Flames are desperate to get faster, to get more creative, to be more productive, to get more scoring chances. And one weakness or area of improvement is, of course, shooting first. He is very much a pass first mentality. So I think that is something that, it's not going to be an easy thing to break. But I do want to see that change a little bit. I think that obviously with time that happens, I think when you identify those areas of improvement, you can kind of focus on them more and put a real emphasis on them. But maybe that's not what the Flames are necessarily focused on. I'm sure they want him shooting the puck. That's not a question. But if they think that they have a guy who can, put the finishing touches on his plays, then so be it, if he's not shooting every single time. But with the other NCAA players in the Flames system, Adar Suniev and Matt Coronado, I would really like to see them kind of, come together as a little group and kind of take him under his wing. And I mean, Suniev's only played one NHL game, but to, mentor him a little bit, to, show him the ropes. I think that the Flames are a very strong organization in, they don't just let people wander. There's, usually a player there to pick someone up from the airport. You're rooming with someone, and if not, that player gets traded and you move right in. Like they're not going to let him figure this out on his own. So I'm excited to see this, to be able to grab a center that is highly regarded at 18, that plays a very good 200-foot game, capable of incredible playmaking, and has speed. That's what you were looking for. That's what you're looking for. And coming up next, we are going to talk about the Flames' second draft pick of the evening with Cullen Potter. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in, and it is the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and lowest price guarantee that take all the worry out of buying. I love the Game Time app. It is what I use to go to a majority of my Flames games this season, and I appreciated the all-in pricing, the view from your seat feature, and just you're getting a much better deal, in my opinion. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Download the Game Time today. Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And I'll be doing a deeper dive into both of these players very soon, very likely Saturday and Monday. But just to kind of give you an idea of who these players are, what is a quick snapshot of who these players are. So Cullen Potter, number one, a super cool name. If you're a Twilight fan, got the Cullens, or if you're a Harry Potter fan, got the Potter. Super cool. He is a U.S. born player from Wisconsin. His mom actually played in the women's Team USA team. So it's an interesting selection best player available sort of situation, and it seemed like the right move. Again, you're not getting a Michael Misa at 32. It's not happening. So you got to kind of temper your expectations, and I think that it's a work in progress, and there's nothing wrong with that. These kids are 18 years old. There's always room to improve. But he is another left shot winger that is 5'10", so very tiny, teeny tiny. But that's never been a problem for the Flames. Him and Higgins were the only firm NCAA players that were projected to go in the first round, which is pretty cool. You know, I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure that I think we're going to see more of that, especially with the CHL's, you know, what do you call it? Their new rules. I think that that's pretty neat. So it's pretty cool to see that you're getting a player that has, some room to grow, and someone that is not afraid of taking those extra steps to work hard. As I mentioned, he's another left shot winger. He plays at Arizona State University. He actually started his collegiate career a year early at 17. That's wild. Good for him. I think that, Arizona is kind of like people still sleep on Arizona for hockey in general, but they do have a good hockey program, and I'm not going to write him off just because he goes to ASU. But I think based on the scouting reports, this may be a little bit of a work in progress, and that's fine. I think that really what's most attractive about him is the fact that, like, I was watching some of his highlights, and he can shoot the puck. Not only does he shoot the puck, it's quick and it's accurate. And that was one of the most exciting things about Matt Coronado, because you had a player that had the makings of an NHLer. You just have to refine those skills. And I'm sorry, if you can shoot the puck and score, I really don't care about anything else. That maybe that's silly, but that's where I'm kind of at with the Flames right now. It sounds like he is a little bit of a defensive liability, but I mean, who isn't on the Flames at the moment? Igor Sharangovich is one of the biggest problem child with that. But I think, like I said, some fine tuning. I think the Flames organization does a really good job with obviously development, and with both of these players playing in college, I don't expect to see either of them signing entry-level contracts for at least another year or so. I think you may see Reschny sign one first, if I had to guess. But overall, let them develop, let them play the NCAA. It's a different type of game, playing with a bunch of different players than you played with this in the CHL for Reschny, and then Potter's already been there. So just the more playing time, the better. Potter was playing 20 minutes a night last season, so I'm not necessarily concerned about his speed, his stamina, or ability. I think it's there. It's just a matter of refining those skills, and I look forward to watching these two players blossom into NHLers. But coming up next, we're going to wrap up the show with just some overall thoughts, and did Craig Conroy actually cook this time around? Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and full control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you are also building wealth. I liked how easy it was to set up Monarch. It's super easy. It wasn't anything that was earth shattering or difficult or anything like that. I'm someone that spends a ridiculous amount of money on takeout because I don't like to pack my lunches for work. So being able to track that and kind of get slapped in the face with that reality check, it was kind of nice. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto. Overall, just some quick thoughts here. I thought that Craig Conroy did a good job. I did kind of expect there to be, maybe a little movements from him, but no trades, which I mean, that's fine. You don't want to necessarily make a trade just to make a trade on draft day or draft week in general, but I think Craig Conroy did very well. It sounds like when they're like meeting with the players and what have you, they're actually getting to talk to them as human beings rather than just hockey players. They're more than their elite prospect profile, which I think is good because the Flames are so heavily focused on building a good culture that they need to really do their due diligence there, and avoid any slip ups if possible. But Craig Conroy, I mean, obviously it's still early. I would give him an A for the first round. I don't know. I don't think he had 2 first round picks and he did well on both of them. So let's see what the remaining rounds give us, and hopefully next season it does not take 4.5 hours to get through 32 picks. I don't think I saw one positive comment about the decentralized draft. I thought it was silly. I thought that it took way too long, and bringing the players into, what was it on ESPN, they called it like the draft house. I'm not sure if that's what they called it on the other broadcasts, but it was weird. It felt like a reality TV show, like confessional booth where they film those. And there were just technical difficulties. So that could all be avoided if we go back to having a centralized draft and give me the draft floor, give me the general managers talking on 2 phones at once, running back and forth between the tables, whispering, and what have you. I think that is part of the excitement that comes with the draft. And there was a general manager. I don't remember if it was Conroy or if it was someone else that said, not being there kind of took away from the lack. That's why there weren't a lot of trades, because that in-person communication is a lot different. So I hope that they vote to never do this again. Would be great. Took way too long. It was a mess in just about every standard like operation viewpoint. But let's talk about some of the goods. Let's talk about some of the good stuff. Number one, obviously, Michael Schaefer. What an incredible story that young man has. Definitely pulls at your heartstrings, and I'm not one to root for New York sports teams, but I suppose I will always root for him. I think that, to overcome such a huge adversity at 16 years old and still push to live out your dream and be the first overall pick, that's pretty impressive. And I do feel bad for him that they basically, he was crying and having a moment as any normal human being would. They just were shoving the camera in his face and the microphone, and it's just, that's what I don't like about drafts. It's just who has the most trauma, and how do we get content out of this? But especially the NFL draft, those are always insane stories. But anyways, back to the NHL draft. The fact that Hagens fell to 7 is crazy to me. I think that, for him to go from to go into the season at the projected to go number 1, to drop that far is pretty nuts. But it worked out. Don Sweeney couldn't mess it up. Otherwise, I think he would have been fired right on the Zoom call. But it was an interesting process. I think that having the special guests were neat. It was very surprising to see Meredith Gaudreau announce Columbus's over their pick. It was very nice to see Lanny. I wish that they didn't do that draft room house thing outside of the top 5, maybe top 10. After that, you can go sit down with Leah Kessel. Leah Hextall. Oh my God, Leah Hextall. And you can have her ask you questions, because it took way too long, the technical difficulties, and it just felt super weird not having your first photo as a drafted NHL player to be without the general managers weren't there. I don't know. It felt really weird, and maybe it's because it's new, but I don't know. Change is weird, but this wasn't good at all. So hopefully next year we go back to a centralized draft or something gets worked out, because I don't want to do that again. And I'm sure everyone there didn't want to sit there for 4.5 hours. But that'll do it for me here on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this post-draft reaction. I will have your deeper dives on Cullen Potter and Cole Reschny coming up later this weekend. Today at this point, Saturday. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. We'll see you later.